welcome to my top 5 fiction book list. You will definitely want to read number 5. Number 1, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. How do I reach enlightenment? How did the Buddha do it? Siddhartha starts as a young Brahmin, a priest, who decides that life is more than just a samsara. He leaves to explore the world and comes eye in eye with the Buddha, and he's impressed by the peace he emanates. But he meets Kamala, a whore, who blinds him with lust. Siddhartha falls in blissful ignorance for years, but then falls into a deep pit of despair. He wanders off again, searching for enlightenment, finally finding a river where he will stay the rest of his times. Siddhartha is a book about the rocky road of enlightenment and how it's not a linear path towards success. It's a great book to start out with, and I have gifted it to many friends. Number 2, Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. This book is terrible, and I hate that I love it. It's about Humbert Humbert.
This is Mr. Humbert.
A man of 40-something that falls in love with a 13-year-old girl. And every time I crack open this book, the first chapter, I'm like, oh, it's like a charming love story. Humbert Humbert is charming me, but he is actually a pedophile. Slowly, as you get into the chapters, it becomes more and more disgusting, and then you realize, oh, this man is a monster. And I'm having a hard time getting through the book because sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's sad, but most of the time it's just strange. I will definitely reread it, but the first time I read it, it was shocking. Number 3. Comfort of Strangers by McEwan. This book reads like a short horror film. The setting is, I believe, Venice, where two lovers go to have a vacation. They're a bit aloof and their love seems to be on shaky ground. They walk through Venice in the evening looking for food because they were having sex the whole day, so they didn't figure we need to eat. So at 3 a.m. they meet this mysterious guy who takes them by the hand and brings them to this weird bar. Now, it's a red flag that someone random would bring you to a weird bar and then just be very friendly towards you at 3 a.m. But they don't think anything weird of it. Slowly and surely, they get to know this person better and better.
Robert started to hurt me when we made love.
And it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. And eventually, they get caught in this man's trap. And the ending is very shocking. It actually upset me for a few hours, which was pretty funny. This is because I'm not used to books eliciting this much emotion in me. Number 4. The Alchemist by Paul Coelho. The Alchemist is another short story on enlightenment and finding treasure inside of yourself. A lone shepherd in the mountains of Spain decides to leave everything for a great treasure resting in the Sahara Desert. He sells his sheep, takes the money to Africa, where in Morocco he gets robbed. Then he decides, what am I to do? And builds up skills. At some point he gets the money to take the caravan towards the Sahara Desert, where he comes eye in eye with the Alchemist. It's a very fun book and it's a short read, so I would highly recommend it. After all these short reads, here is number 5, The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. For people who have been following this channel, you might have seen this one coming. The Brothers Karamazov perfectly encapsulates the human experience. It shows the tragedy of family like no other. The family consists of one father and 3 brothers. The father, Fyodor Pavlovich, is a disgusting man who has no morals, no shame, is quite rich, but uses these riches for all the base desires that he can think of. There's even one really funny scene where he goes to the monastery where his son will be a monk and then totally roasts everyone in a monastery by saying that they're hypocrites and they're doing the wrong thing and how can they be so stupid to live like this. And you really feel the shame while you're reading that. You're like, oh man, like just shut up, man. Like, what are you doing? Anytime I was walking through the day, I would think about what would be happening in this little town. How would these characters be? They really started to take a life of their own in my head. So the 3 brothers, they are very different from each other. The first brother is Dimitri. He came from another mother and he is very sensual, he's passionate, is very emotional, but also a bit violent. And the problem is he falls in love with a lot of women and these women play games with him. At some point, Kushenka, the woman he's in love with, starts a weird love triangle with his father as well, which eventually pushes him to a violent outburst. The second son, Ivan, is like a Reddit atheist on steroids. He doesn't believe in God and he looks at everything through a rational lens, which makes him a force to be reckoned with. What's interesting about his character is that he is an atheist, but at some point he meets the devil, which kind of defeats the whole point of him being an atheist. This conversation with the devil is one of the most intense scenes I've ever read in a book. Then the third son, you have Alyosha. And Alyosha is a virtuous, pious one. He's the one that wants to go to the monastery. He's very reminiscent of the character from The Idiot, Prince Mishkin. And in this book, The Idiot, the prince is almost like a manifestation of Christ in Russia at that time. And it shows how if someone was as virtuous as Jesus Christ, they would not be accepted by society at large. And Alyosha kind of reflects that idea as well. This book is so rich in story that I would be lying if I said that I understood it totally. There are many scenes that have stuck with me, and some scenes where I wasn't really paying much attention. And for that reason, I want to reread it again. I still have not gotten all out of it. Also, if you're going to read this book, it might be a bit useful to keep notes on who the characters are, because sometimes it feels like a sitcom where characters come in and out, and you kind of have to keep an eye on who is. All in all, it's a great novel with great philosophical and psychological insight, and I would highly recommend anyone to read this book. Although if you're starting with Dostoevsky, start with Notes from the Underground. So this is my top 5 fiction book list of 2022. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.